For today's installment of Vinyl 101, I'll be tackling a subject that is near and dear to all of us: money. So as you probably already know, record collecting can become a very expensive hobby. So how do you know that you're getting the best deal? How do you know that you're stretching your dollar, your pound, or your euro as far as it'll go? Well, today I'm going to try to tackle this subject from both the buyer and seller perspective and try to shed some light on the most practical ways to figure out what those records are worth. Now, this can be quite the extensive subject. I'm going to try to keep it short and sweet and maybe just hit the key points along the way, but you may want to relax, settle in, and possibly even take some notes as we try to figure out how to properly price records. So if you're new here, welcome in, and if you're a repeat offender, welcome back. I'm Johnny, and this is Channel 910. Now, I will lead off this entire conversation with one sentence that really encapsulates everything. Something is worth what someone is willing to pay for it. What always has to be understood about record collecting is that everybody does it a little differently, and there is no right or wrong way. So now, just because your budget might be $100 for a single item, I might only be willing to pay $20 for that same item, and the next guy might only be willing to pay $5 for that item. So everyone's got their own budget and their own wants and desires. Some collectors only want original pressings. Others are fine with reissues. Your audiophiles might only want the audiophile pressings. And then there's some people that only want pressings that come from a certain country. Everyone's got their way to collect, and no single way is the correct way. But that being said, there is one thing that kind of binds all of us together as collectors, and that would be our wallets. Now, we all, from either the buyer or seller perspective, want to make sure that we're either getting the most for our dollar or we're getting the most out of our investment if we're selling it. Now, this is important as a buyer and a seller. As a buyer, you're wanting to get the best thing you can for the lowest price possible. And if you're a seller, you want to make sure that you're putting out a good product, but you're actually making something in the process because it is probably your business. So I was kind of inspired to talk more about this because I notice when I scroll through social media, you get people that just throw up a picture of an album cover and say, what is this worth? What do I have? Is this worth anything? Well, first off, that shouldn't be your first question. Your first question should be, is this a good record? Well, I enjoy this. But if your sole intent is to just sell the thing, I would say you need to do some research. And research is not just throwing a picture on social media and asking a bunch of strangers, how much money can I get for this? There is a lot of work that goes into determining which pressing you have, what year it is, what country it comes from. There's a lot of details and intricacies to cataloging and looking up and grading these records, a lot more than a lot of people think. So that's where I'm going to try to kind of assist here today. So understanding proper pricing, it helps everyone in this equation, the buyer and the seller. Like I said, the buyer just wants to get the most bang for his buck, and the seller wants to be able to make some kind of profit to continue selling in the future. And I think where a lot of people make their first mistake is they go to just one source and that's all they look at. And when it comes to something like this, there are multiple sources out there to look at and gauge exactly what's the proper price for something. So of those sources, you have places like Discogs being the main cataloging source that I would say the majority of record collectors use. If you're not using Discogs, that's fine. I would highly recommend taking a look at it if it's something you're not familiar with. It's absolutely great, not only for pricing out records that you're looking for. You can create your want list and you can catalog the records you already have so that you're keeping track of what it is you've got, because once your collection starts growing, it gets kind of hard to remember exactly which pressings you might have. Now, the benefit to Discogs in the looking up aspect is that you can get very, very detailed with exactly the pressing you're looking for, and I'll talk about that in just a little bit. Now, other places you can look are eBay, where you can see things that are currently for sale and stuff that has already sold. You can also look at places like PopPsych. Now, PopPsych will only look at things that have been sold, but it gives you a good idea of where things have fallen in the past. Now, you can always just look at the direct source for the records, and when I'm talking places like the big box stores, independent record stores, the artist web stores. These are all places I talked about in my where to buy vinyl video. So if you haven't, you could check that one out. Gives you an idea of all the different places you could go to find records, but that's also a good place to get an idea of what things are selling for. And there are other places online you can check for pricing. I discourage the use of places like Facebook Marketplace, but I do encourage the use of places like Whatnot, for instance. A lot of sellers on there, and you can look at a lot of their inventory and see what everyone is selling things for, because you can actually search it by artist and title. So bottom line there is you need to look at more than one source when trying to get a good price on something. Discogs is not always the best place to go. It's a great place, but you want to try to hit these other places as well to try to get a better idea of the entire landscape that you're dealing with. Something else to keep in mind that is very important, and a lot of newer collectors tend to just not necessarily overlook, but not even know that this is that important, is understanding the different variants of a record. Now, I'm talking either the pressing year, or if it's on like a limited edition, or if it's a colored vinyl, or if it's a box set version. There's lots of different versions, and a lot of them use the same identifier codes, which we'll talk about here in a second. So knowing exactly which one that you're dealing with is going to make a huge difference sometimes in what that item is actually worth. So the last piece that I'll talk about here before we actually look at some examples on screen is you need to know what's available currently and what has already sold. Meaning that just because something is for sale for a certain price doesn't mean that it will sell for that price. A lot of times something will elevate in price well ahead of where the actual median price is at the time, and that's just because it either became extremely scarce or the demand went up. Records are just like any other collectible item. The more scarce they get, or the higher the demand goes, the more it's going to affect the price, especially if the two separate greatly, with a high demand and a low supply. So what we'll do here is we'll take a look at, I'll share my screen so you guys can kind of see as I navigate through. I'm going to use Discogs and eBay so that we don't get too far down a rabbit hole, just to kind of look at, what I'm talking about with the variants and how to look up and so on and so forth. You'll get the idea. And the first album that I'm going to use as an example is one that most everybody has, and if you don't, I highly recommend it. But this one right here, Dark Side of the Moon, this is just a banged up copy I pulled off from my personal collection. We're going to take a look at this specific one and see how difficult it is to actually look it up. All right, so this is the home screen for Discogs. And what you can do here is click up in the search bar and type the title of what you are looking for. Dark Side of the Moon. So we have the master release right up here at the top. We'll just click on that one, go into this master release. Okay, so what this does is it tells you a little bit about the album. It's great. Now we got to figure out which version we have. Okay, so what we can do is we go to Format. We find LP. Oh, look, there are 641 different versions of this album on LP. So we're going to click that one, and it's going to narrow it down. We can find a country if we know that it's a US pressing or a UK, or maybe we don't know what country it is. Maybe we don't know what year it is. That's when we can actually go in and search for a barcode or any other catalog number or identifier. Now, the pressing that I have actually has a barcode, so I was able to enter that up here in the search bar. Brought it down here and shows that there are 14 different versions with that barcode. So I have to figure out, of these 14, which one is it? So now it's at this point that I have to bring to your attention matrix codes. So not everything has a barcode. So you see we've got a barcode on this one. But if this had been an original pressing of Dark Side of the Moon from 1973, barcodes didn't exist in 1973 on records. So we would have to go off of the matrix code in the dead wax or in the run out. So where is that exactly? So if you were to take the record out of the jacket, so when you're looking at the record itself, the area that's right here around the label that has no actual music grooves, that is your dead wax. And there are, as you can see, there's some writing in there. There should be some on this side as well. There it is at the top. So those codes, that's your run out matrix. That is your identifier. It's almost like your serial number for the record. So if you were to enter that information into Discogs, it'll narrow down the pressing that you have. Let's take a look. All right, so what I've done here is I kept the barcode right here highlighted in blue, but I added all of this. This is what was in the dead wax, or that run out code, on that particular pressing. And what happened is I went from 14 down to 2. Now, in this particular case, what has to be looked at with this is now we have to figure out, okay, we have 2 records that have the same run out. So what's the difference in them? So if I were to click on one, you can see here, it has all of the information. We see that this is a US, and it was released in July of 1983. Okay, it also says that this is a split Winchester Jacksonville. What does that mean? Now let's take a look. So under the notes section, because everything I just scrolled through, and it's a lot of credits, who manufactured it, who pressed it, who mastered it, some of the players on the album. But then you get down here to the notes, and it says this is a Capitol Records 5th issue with the Capitol label with the rainbow ring. If you remember a second ago, you saw it had the rainbow ring on the label. Originally, it included a poster, a group poster, and a single sheet of stickers. I don't have those things, but it lets you know, hey, be looking for this. If you want a complete package, it's supposed to have this. So it also says here that the A side is a Winchester plate and the B side is a Jacksonville plate. So what does that mean exactly? So records are pressed with certain pressing plates, and apparently side A came from Winchester and was mastered by one engineer, and side B used a different plate that was mastered by a different engineer in this case. It says it was recorded at Abbey Road Studios between these 2 dates, but that does not mean that this record came from 1972 or 73. Even though it says copyright 1973. Please understand that copyright is the year in which it received its copyright, which was in 1973. It does not mean this record is from 1973. It is from 1983. This is a repress. So what we have here is a split Winchester Jacksonville. You can see here under the barcode and other identifiers, it actually shows all the different variants it could possibly be, because it can vary a little bit depending on exactly what month it was cut and who actually pulled it off the line. And so there may be slight differences, but this is generally what you're going to see. And then it'll also go down here and show you some other formats, which we're not overly concerned with now. Some recommendations as to like, hey, if you like Dark Side of the Moon, you'll probably like this too. And then you can find people's reviews down here at the bottom. So this is your typical Discogs page for a release. So that was the first one. What does this second one talk about? So it also says that it's a reissue. It also says it's a Winchester Jacksonville. It goes into even a little bit more depth and says it lists the 2 engineers, E.S. and Gene. These are notated in the runouts. Now, it does not give a release year on this one because they just couldn't identify the exact release year when they made this listing. Because I also have to explain that with Discogs, it's kind of like Wikipedia. Anyone can make these listings. I've made quite a few myself. And if there is something incorrect in here, like if I actually did have a way to figure out the year, I could go in and right up here, edit this release, and I could go in and put a year in here if I wanted to. So again, also, if individuals are editing this, there can be a little room for error. So you still have to be careful with what you're looking up. Again, we go through all the credits and the track listing. Now this note section is a little bit more robust. We got a little bit more information. It says it's a 1980s reissue on the retro 1960s black capital labels with a rainbow rim. Okay, so that checks out. It says here that the Winchester side has this symbol, which that record did have that symbol, and the other side should have a 0 somewhere in the run out, designating that it's a Jacksonville. So Eddie Schreier and Gene Thompson were the engineers that did these cuts, indicated by ES on one side and Gene on the other side. It also says here there was a similar edition cut by Ken Perry, and you can click this link and it'll take you to that one, but we don't have that one, so we're not going to click that. It also says here that it was issued with the 2 posters, a red one of the band and a green moonscape. It was also issued with 2 postcard stickers combined in one sheet. So on the back cover and labels, it should say this. The back cover should also indicate this information, and the labels should show this information. As well as inside the gatefold, you should see all of this. What I found by looking at this particular listing and the other listing, this one over here, they could probably be combined. Now, what I mean by combining them is that in Discogs, if you find that there are 2 entries that they're really the same thing, there's no discernible difference, you can actually combine the 2 listings and it makes it one listing with all of the information kind of just compacted in there. So I think in this case, these 2 are probably the same. There's not enough information on either one to make it overly distinguishable from its next door neighbor, so they could probably be combined, but we're not going to do that right now. Maybe I'll do it later, but it is what it is for right now. We've kind of narrowed down that this is a 1983 US reissue, half Winchester, half Jacksonville. So we've figured out what we have here. So now, what is it actually worth? So let's look at this one over here first to see if there's any for sale. And it says there are none of these available in the marketplace for sale. Now, that is an indicator that this listing, like I said, could probably be combined with the other one because there's none of these even for sale. It also shows that only 10 people have this version. It's that would make this extremely rare if that's true. So we look at the other one, 91 people have it, which is still, for a record like this, that's on the rare side, but there are a lot more listed here, which makes me feel like this is probably the more accurate listing between the 2. It also shows that there's 11 of these available. So if we look at these 11 that are available right now, sorted by price, should be starting lowest and then going up. You have this one here. Now, what's good about Discogs too, but it can be hit or miss. It depends on the person who's selling it. It shows you the condition of the exact copy you're looking for. Now, this picture that we see up here is not the picture necessarily of the one that you see here. You have to actually ask the individuals on Discogs to send you the photos because they have no way to actually load them on here. So they're calling it a VG Plus, but they're saying it has no jacket. It even says no jacket, disc only, and the disc has some light marks, and they want $20. And they are in the United States. This is the other thing to look at here is where is it coming from? Can you easily get it? And I'm looking at it from an American's perspective. I want to get my stuff from the United States because it saves me on shipping and it doesn't have as far to travel. So United States listings are what I'm going to look at first. Looking here, you have one that's a G plus media. We probably want to avoid that one. There's no inserts with this, so if you're looking for those posters and stuff, you're not going to find them. They want $20 for that. Also from the United States. Again, another one in the United States. We have a VG Plus record with a VG sleeve. There's no stickers or posters. They want $27 before shipping. Staying in the U.S., looks like a lot of these are in the U.S. This one is near mint with a VG Plus sleeve. Nice near mint record, VG Plus cover, light wear. We don't know if it has posters or not. They want $32. All right. See, we're going up in price. We're getting a little bit better with the condition. This one's VG Plus all around. Says it's an excellent copy. They want $40. This one's glossy vinyl. Cover has typical edge wear. Includes a poster but no stickers. So you're halfway there, but they want $45. So you see the trend that we're going on here. We just keep going. All of these actually are in the United States. This person actually wants, and for no inserts at all, and they still want $120. So again, maybe they're they're getting a little extreme with what they're asking for it. So, but this is it. If you wanted this particular pressing, there's 11 of them available, all in the United States. And they range from the high end of 120 all the way down to about $20. But you're not getting a jacket. Now you can also look to see what it last sold for. It actually just last sold on 24 October, and it's only November 11th as I'm recording this. So it was not even a month ago that this sold. So let's take a look here. And it shows you how this has been selling over time. You see here that it sold for about $45 for a near mint copy back in June. Lowest price one was way down here for $14 for a fair copy. So it was probably trashed. You can go through and look here at all the different prices, when they were sold, the condition they were in. It gives you a good idea of like, okay, what is the market willing to do for this record? So again, as long as you can find which pressing you have and you know generally the condition and you can look it up, this will give you a good idea as to, if you're trying to sell it, exactly what you have and kind of what the market's willing to bear for that record. Now, if you're a buyer in this situation, this kind of gives you an idea if you're thinking like, I'm only willing to pay $10 for that. Well, you can see on here, it's never even sold for that low. So it's well worth over $10. So you may need to find yourself a different copy if you only want to go for $10. So there's a lot of factors to take in here. It's a great way to do the homework and get an idea as to what you're looking at from both the buyer perspective and as a seller. So where's somewhere else that we can look? Well, I did say that I was going to show you Discogs and eBay. So let's head on over to the Bay and see what we can find over there. Okay, so I searched for Dark Side of the Moon vinyl US 1983 to try to narrow down a little better what we were just looking at, because we want that particular copy. So looking through here, you see we come across a 73 US. Well, that's not the one we're looking for, but you can see there they want almost $200 for an original pressing. You got this one. This is a 2025 remastered. That's not our copy. 1973 gatefold. So it's a vintage. It's not the year we're looking for though. That's $25. There's a mobile fidelity. This one again, like I was saying, depending on which pressing you're looking at, is it limited edition? Is it audiophile? Is it a color vinyl? This, if you're not familiar with mobile fidelity or original master recordings, these are audiophile copies and they are pretty expensive. This one at $115 is actually not a terrible price for that. So let's see, we've got one here for $20. Not exactly sure which one it is. Now we can always click in. I'm not going to do that. I can always click in and see if they have some better photos and we can try to match up with what we have. But we see here, $20 for a buy it now. They're not showing any posters or anything in the photo, which, here we go. You see this one here shows the stuff. This is something to look for on eBay. If they've got it, they usually show it. So keep that in mind when searching on eBay. So you're going to get some off-kilter type stuff here. Dark Side of the Moon demo, color vinyl. This is probably some unofficial press, but it's neat looking. We have a 1973 again. We have a 73 again. So you see, we're not seeing these 1983s. We're seeing a lot of the original pressings. Here's a nice German press on white vinyl. You've got a version here, no poster, $20, buy it now. So you see what I'm saying? They're all over the place. You're seeing prices from $200 to $155, another one for $200, all the way down to $25. So this one, they actually stuck the sticker right on the jacket there. Look at that, $30. So you can do this and see exactly what's available on eBay. Now that's what's available, but has any of this actually sold? So let's take a look at what's actually sold. So from this screen, and this is on the laptop, by the way. This is a little different on your phone, but you can still find it if you're searching through the eBay app. If you go over here on the left-hand side and scroll all the way down to show only. Now here you can put sold items. It clicks on completed items too. So you'll see here that on November 9th, you got this one that has posters and stickers. Oh, it's a 1983. It sold for $50. That's a really nice looking copy too. 50th anniversary. Wow, somebody snagged that one for only $16. That's a good deal. This one here, which does not indicate a lot of information. It does say it was brand new though, so I'm going to assume that it was probably the same 50th anniversary here for $20. Here we go again with the 50th anniversary sealed for $28. 1973 sold for $23. 1973 sold for $16, and this was an auction, so people bid on this one. They probably started it at $1, and it only sold for $16 after 7 bids. This one sold for just under $30. This one for just under $20, and it also was an auction. 3 bids came through. This one sold for $25. So you see where I'm going with this. You get an idea of where all of these kind of fell. As far as what they sold for. And you can see here that I was telling you about that photo. If you've got it, show it off. They have both the posters. They have both the postcards. There's the jacket, which looks a little rough here in the corners, but 9 bidders got it up to about $22. So maybe somebody just needed those posters and those postcards, and because that's honestly a good price just to get those to fill out your set. So, yep, there you go. That's kind of how to search for stuff on eBay, both what is for sale and what has already sold. So now we looked at something that was a U.S. pressing, and all of the presses were in the U.S. Now, what about something that's never had a U.S. pressing? It was only from a foreign country, and it may be a little harder to find in the U.S. Well, I pulled this one off the shelf. This is 10 Summoner's Tales from Sting. This is an original 1993 European pressing. Now, it does have a barcode. If you scan that barcode, it brings up a few different versions. I did narrow it down, and this is the European press. So let's take a really quick glance just at Discogs to see how hard this is to get in the U.S. So here you see this is the page for the actual release. Like I said, it's a 1993 European pressing. This one did not have an original U.S. release. There are some represses available out there, but we're looking at the copy I have in hand is the original. So what is out there for sale? Well, we have here everything that is for sale right now. So like I said, we want to focus on the United States. We're in the United States, so we want to focus on that right now. So what I can do is go over here on the left, and it says ships from, and I can actually choose the United States, and it shows there's only 3. So let's look at those 3 really quick. Here are your prices for this particular record in the United States. So you're looking at on the low end for $120, and it says here that's a sealed copy. That's a heck of a deal right there. It walks all the way up to about $175. So only 3 copies, and they're pretty pricey. So what happens if we try to get this as someone in the United States from one of these foreign countries that you see over here? Well, what I always start off with is condition. So with this particular record, it's Sting. It's a little bit. It actually does say there in the style. It is soft rock, so it's not. It's not a metal album that if it's a little, it's got a few hairline scratches. That's probably okay because it's going to be loud enough to play through them. This is one that's going to have a lot of quiet parts that you want to make sure it sounds good. So you don't want any kind of surface issues. I would say you don't want to go any lower than a VG plus on this. So actually what we'll do is we'll sort here too. We'll keep the near mints out of the question right now. We'll just look at the VG plus copies because that's probably going to be a bit more affordable. So we'll just narrow it down to VG plus copies. Okay, so you see over here on the right, that's an immediate oh no moment where you can't even get it shipped to the United States. The first one that comes up being able to ship to the US is from Italy. So it says slight surface signs, plays very well. Inner insert is in excellent shape, really minimal wear or ring wear on the sleeve, but it's difficult to be observed. So it's a decent amount of information they put in there. They're still calling it a VG plus. So you're taking the seller at their word. Now they also do have 100% rating after just under 4,300 sales. So that's good. I would trust that. You're looking at after shipping, because you have your base price of 55 euros plus your shipping of 40 euros. It's going to bring you up to $110 total. So if you're wanting to get it from overseas, you get a whole $10 off. And it's got to go all the way across an ocean to get to you. So you're taking a chance. The next one up is $104 total for VG plus. They left no comments though, and they only have 6 ratings. That's a new seller. So you got to start somewhere. But I don't know. 6 ratings is low. Then we just get up to absolutely insane. $308 here. This one's $142. 130. Your shipping gets a little better with some of these, which brings that overall price down. $140, $200. So you see where I'm going with this. You can get this from overseas, but you're still going to pay a little extra. So what's the bottom line there? Just because something has a price in one country does not mean that you can get that same record in your country for the same price. And this goes especially because so many people are into Japanese presses, high-end German audiophile pressings, UK presses from bands like the Beatles or Led Zeppelin or Pink Floyd. These pressings, being overseas, they are going to cost more in the United States and vice versa. People in Japan and Europe want some of these US pressings that when they have to be brought over, it increases the price. So you just have to understand this when you're looking at these different pressings. So something we were also just looking at, I touched on it with Discogs, is someone who has a low rating or a low number of sales. When you're dealing with something like Discogs or eBay even, yeah, you can communicate with the seller through emails or through the like a chat service, but you're not getting that personal one-on-one communication. You're not getting to actually see the product other than with some pictures. Maybe they can send you a video. You're asking them to go kind of above and beyond at that point, which is great if they do, but it's not often that happens. So you do tend to take more of a risk when you're buying from people on Discogs or on eBay, especially if they're not willing to give you that high level of communication. This is where it helps to go to your brick and mortar shop or shop somewhere like Whatnot, where, yeah, it's online and it is auction, but you're interacting one-on-one with that seller, and oftentimes you're actually able to hear the record played on the stream. So what have we kind of talked about so far? Well, we've got the multiple sources, Discogs, eBay, Whatnot. We've got the multiple variants. Determine what it is exactly that you have before you go out there and either try to sell it or try to buy it. Know what it is that you have or what you're looking for. Look at what's currently available, both online in your local shop, and kind of take a look at what's already sold too. Just because someone's asking $100 for something does not mean that it's really worth that. Make sure that the market will support that price. We talked about the different pressings from different countries and what that means if you're trying to get something imported into your country, that you probably are going to pay a little bit more for it. Also talked about the personal factor of record buying, and that you are taking a risk whenever you order something online. And the last thing that I want to talk about here, and kind of what's, it kind of pertains to the buyer-seller relationship, and the fact that I've seen buyers that get agitated when a price is higher than what they think it should be, and they say, well, if you look at Discogs, or well, if you look at eBay, or well, my local store has it. Look, not to sound mean, but if your local store or Discogs or eBay has it lower, go get it. Don't haggle with someone over a price if you can just get it cheaper somewhere else. That person has it set at that price for a reason, and maybe there's a little wiggle room, but don't just go attack somebody because the price is a little higher than what you thought it should be. See, here's what I feel needs to be understood when it comes to the buyer-seller relationship. And I'm speaking as both. I do buy a lot, as you can see behind me, and I also sell online as well. So I balance that relationship both ways. And I try to treat people the same way that I prefer to be treated. So understanding what goes into being a seller, I think is very important for the buyer. So understanding what can be considered as like inflated costs for something. So for instance, so let's say I was trying to sell this record that we just talked about, which I wouldn't sell this one, belongs to my wife. So that's a no-no right off the bat. But if I was, this being an original pressing from 93, immediately it's a hard pressing to find because it came from what I consider the dead zone of vinyl. I have a whole couple videos on records that were either never pressed or only have expensive original pressings, and a lot of that stuff came out of the 90s. So 90s stuff is already hard to get. So you got to understand, I had to source it. It's hard to find. So I found it. I went out and got it. So there's that aspect of it. I got it home. I ran it through an ultrasonic machine. So I cleaned it for you ahead of time. So it's nice and perfect sounding. I tested it. I threw it on a turntable and actually listened to it. Maybe not the whole thing, but enough of it to get a good idea. Listen to those lead ends, listen to the inner grooves. And if there are any stray marks, play through those and see if they play fine. So, getting a good idea of the listening experience that you'll get. I then have to grade the record, both the jacket, the inner sleeve that comes with it, as well as the record itself. So I'm taking the time to actually sit down and examine all of the stuff and put forth the effort to give it a nice grade. And like I said, I sell online. So now I have to create the listing. I have to advertise it. I've got to put it in the shop in multiple locations and then keep up with, did I sell it here? Did I take it out there? Do I need to drop the price at both locations? I have to keep up with all of that stuff in my online shops. Packaging and shipping is another piece. So once you buy the record, that's not the end of it as far as cost for the seller. Now, if I have to ship it to you, I've got to put it in a box, and I can't just throw it in any box. I need to get a record mailer. I need to get the cardboard inserts to make sure that it's safe once it's in there. Some people use bubble wrap. I'm not a fan of bubble wrap, but I mean, it's a way, and it's not free either. So all the packing materials cost money. It goes into the cost for the record. Something else that I do as a seller is I put all of the records into anti-static inner sleeves and also preserve the jacket in these nice poly outer sleeves. Now, is this stuff free? Absolutely not. So for every record that goes out, I'm using the inner sleeve, the outer sleeve, putting it in a box, getting the packing material. You see where I'm going with this? Each record starts to add up over time. So hopefully that kind of explains why sometimes you see a price on something and you think that it's a little higher than you'd like it to be, and then that person doesn't want to budge on the price a whole lot. It's because there's a lot that goes into these things. I've got to go out into the wild and find the thing and bring it home and clean it and play test it and grade it and then put all of this re-sleeving and stuff on it and then take photos of it and put it on multiple different selling sites. And in the case of Whatnot, I actually have to go live and do all of this stuff that not only has physical cost between the sleeves and the fuel and the packing material, but it costs the most important thing, and that's our time. So when you're buying this stuff from someone online, you're paying them for their time and their service. So keep that in mind when you're purchasing, as well as when you're selling. It's you want to roll that in there, but you don't want to get overly aggressive with it. I mean, we just saw the prices on this. where you can get it for, between, probably $110 and $150. And that's probably about 125 is where I would put something like this. So you just have to understand it's like, you have to keep it reasonable based off of what's online, but you have to take care of the customer, and you got to take care of yourself too. So don't sell yourself short, sellers. So I told you this, it's an in-depth thing. I can go way down into details on this. And if you'd like to see me kind of do more of a Discogs 101, let me know in the comments. I can always do that. If you'd like some more examples of just like really hard to nail down pressings, or if you have one yourself that you're like, I've never been able to figure this out, get in touch with me in the comments, and maybe I can help you figure this stuff out too. So, I talked a couple times about the fact that Channel 910 does sell online. You can find us on eBay. You can find us on Whatnot. Stick around at the end of the video and you'll have a QR code pop up on the screen where you can get $15 of spending money just for signing up. Our record collections are important to us, but so is our money. We want to make sure that we're doing it right as both buyers and sellers, because let's be honest with ourselves, most of us sellers are also buyers too. When it's all said and done, we want to make sure that we're getting the most out of our collection and we're getting the most out of our money. And if we're really being honest, if you're buying from someone, you want them to also be a collector, because they're going to know what they're doing and what they're looking at. So guys, hopefully this video was useful to you. I know I can be kind of all over the place sometimes, and this is a very in-depth subject. So, but hopefully you got something out of it. If you did like it, by liking the video, it lets me know that you're into this kind of content. If you're not subscribed, I would love to get your subscription. It's definitely going to help out the channel as we grow and bring more to you guys. So if you guys stick around to the very end of the video, there'll be a QR code that'll lead you to our social media, as well as that $15 free over on Whatnot. If you just scan that and sign up, we'd love to see you over there in the vinyl community. But that's all that I've got for today. So thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you at the next video, my dudes.